everybody. This is Twyla Kay, founder of Woman Up Global, and I am so excited today. I have finally been able to connect with one of our Woman Up Global members, and just a very, very special woman. Her name is Susan Ball, and she is the founder of the Rebel Thriver Method, which I will let her tell you about that here in a little bit. But the reason why I'm connecting with Susan today is she's part of the women who are sharing their stories to empower and educate and inspire other women who may be going through the same things. And one of the things that's near and dear to me about Susan's story is that her story is all about surviving domestic abuse. And I myself, being a victim and a survivor of domestic abuse, just have a very, very special place in my heart for women who are going through that and who have survived it, or women who might be even on the brink of being involved in domestic violence or domestic abuse and don't know what to do. So I am always on the lookout and always thrilled to have women like you, Susan, with me and with us, sharing your story and how you were able to get out of it, because that's the thing. You said something to me earlier about the system seems to keep us all as victims. And I know that's what your Rebel Thriver Method is all about, is how to, move from what I say, always move from victim to victor. And, that's what you're doing. And so I asked you here today for the purpose of just sharing your story and sharing how you overcame that and the message that you have for women out there who are going through the same thing. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to you and just let you kind of share your story with us, if you would.
Twyla, thank you so much for having me. It's really, and I'm so glad we finally connected after a little bit of bumps in the road. My story is interesting in that I viewed myself as a very intelligent, worldly woman who would never get caught up with somebody who would be abusive or take advantage of me. And I met this fellow, and he was Prince Charming. He bought me a house for my girls out in the country. He allowed me to quit my job because he wanted me to stay home and be a mom. And when we moved into that house, which was away from my family and friends, but that, by the way, is a red flag, but I didn't know it at the time. He said to me, we need to get married. And I said, I've been married before, it's not a big deal. But eventually I went along with it. I thought, okay, he loves me, he wants to get married, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And we went to a very fancy hotel in Toronto for our wedding night called the Royal York Hotel. It's actually where the Queen of England stays when she comes to Canada. That's how poshy it is. And the very next morning we were driving out of the driveway, and he reached over and grabbed my hand. And I'll never forget this moment, because I thought it was going to be a loving gesture. And he said, now that you're my wife, you'll do as you're told, how you're told, and when you're told.
Wow.
And I thought, what an odd thing to say. And I kind of laughed it off. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, things changed dramatically. And it went from, we got married in October, and I was able to leave in April of the following year. He was so violent towards me that he actually chased me to the police station and threatened me in front of the police. He actually went to punch the lady cop.
Wow.
He was just out of control. He strangled me until I blacked out, etc., etc. And I had my family, bless their hearts, they came and they rescued me and all of that. But what happened after that in Canada, where I'm from in Ontario, it is mandatory that you go for counseling. Victim services counseling is exactly what it's called. So right away, you're in the victim mentality.
You're labeled.
Labeled. And I was told, and every counseling session was about him. why he did it. Everybody was talking about their spouses. Da, 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 da. Nobody was talking about us or how to move forward. So we were kept with him, kept and kept.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to live that story. I learned the behavior that I could be as bitchy as I wanted to be. I could be as cruel as I wanted to be. I could drink as much as I wanted to. And I could say to everybody, but I'm a victim. So don't bother me, I'm a victim. That was the learned behavior that I got out of all that counseling. Anytime I went to somebody, they'd say, but Susan, you're a victim. Okay, I'll keep doing that then.
And that was your payoff, right? Because you were able to keep doing what you were doing, and you didn't have to change behaviors. You didn't have to change who you were because it was accepted since you were the victim.
That's right. I didn't have to have any personal accountability for my actions. I could cry. I got a part-time job and I could just cry. If my boss got too grumpy with me or his expectations, I could just cry, but I'm a victim. And nobody knows how to deal with you.
Right. Right.
You know,
So how were you able to even recognize that that is where the system and where you had ultimately placed yourself?
I had my 2 girls and they were living with their dad. And I wanted them back, but I was drinking heavily. And I knew that I had to straighten up. And fortunately for me, I met a very dear old family friend on the street just randomly one day. And we stopped for a coffee. And she said, so what's new? So I immediately launched into my story of horrors and headaches and how awful it was. And I didn't even have my children and da, 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 da. And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, that's the most boring story I've ever heard.
Wake up call.
Yeah, and I went,
wow.
Well, first of all, I was angry.
Sure.
And then I went home and I thought, well, I'll never speak to her again. Who cares if she's a dear old family friend? She can go. Within 2 days, I phoned her up and she said, I knew you'd call. Do you want to have a chat? And she said she was a counselor, and I didn't really know that because we had not seen each other in so long. And she said, I've met many people who fall into this victim pattern. They're put in this victimhood. And she said, the problem is healing from domestic violence is a balance between a hug and a kick in the arse. And that's what you've got to find. She said, so I wanted to listen, and then I wanted to give you that kick. And it was from that moment.
That's a true friend, right? Someone who won't let you stay in your story and who challenges you to move out of it. I know myself, I had a similar experience when I, for years after my abuse, like you, I hadn't really gotten into the drinking much, but just behaviors, self-sabotage behaviors that kept me from every opportunity and kept me from every bit of success that I could have ever had in that 12-year period. And had a friend that loved me enough that off the cuff, he asked me, he said, Twi, answer me this riddle. And I said, sure. And he said, why do you always sabotage yourself? And like you, it hit me and I got instantly angry, and I turned around and I said, what are you talking about? I don't sabotage myself. And he said, if you say so. And I tell you, I chewed on that for days. So I can imagine that's probably where you were at, right? Just chewing on that and just like, why'd you have to say that to me?
Because it's so comfortable to be a victim.
Right.
You don't have to challenge yourself. You don't have to challenge your beliefs. You don't have to change anything about yourself. You can just stay there. And I learned, and that's where Rebel Thriver came along, is that it takes a great deal of courage to step out of the victimhood, as I call it, because that's where you get stuck in this little group of people, and start peeling away the layers of yourself. I found out through my own personal self-discovery, and something I do with my clients, is that he was able to get to me not because I was not smart or any of those things, but I had an unhealed wound from my childhood. I never had a family home. So the fact that he gave that to me was so loving to me. It was something my parents couldn't give me, and look at him, he's giving it to me.
So in a way, did it bring on just kind of that resignation that, okay, this, I may have to put up with this, but I have this that I'd never had before.
It did for a while.
Yeah.
I was very much in that mode for a while. And it was a strange thing because my daughter at the time was 10. And I went upstairs to put her to bed, and she got talking to me, and she said to me, "Mommy, do you feel good about yourself?"
Wow.
And I said, "What do
How
you
old
mean?"
was she at the time when she
Oh,
said that?
10.
Wow, 10 years old.
And I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, this is the example I'm setting for 2 girls.
Yeah.
That was the moment that I knew I had to leave. That I knew that had to happen. Because I couldn't even stand the thought that they would grow up and end up in that kind of environment and think it was normal.
Right. Right.
So I wanted to set a super example.
You had said that, one of the messages that you really wanted to get across today in our time together was that there's absolutely no reason, even though we talk ourselves into it or we have a belief system that we can't leave, that there's absolutely no reason, especially when you have children, right? That can, even though I know for me, I was in that relationship for 5 years and we had a child together, and he was wonderful with our child. I mean, never raised his voice to him, never raised a hand to him. I mean, if there's one thing I've always been able to say about him, phenomenal father. He had just never learned properly how to be a husband. And I never learned, looking back now, it's been 30 years. And I've been able to own my own. And I know they say you're the victim, there's no ownership, but sometimes there is, because I pushed his buttons too. I mean, I can look back now and see, that there were a lot of buttons I pushed, and the one button I pushed was staying, right? Just staying, push that button. And I look back now and I think there was absolutely no reason why I needed to stay the 5 years other than I had people around me telling me that I had to, and myself telling me that I had to. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that's where a lot of fear lies, right? Well, I can't get out. I don't have a place to live. I don't have enough money. I can't support us. I can't, I can't, right? So what do you say to those women?
I say to turn all those I can'ts into I cans. What can you do? Focus on that. Can you put away $5 a week? Can you get some of that money from the grocery fund or wherever and put it away? Can you go to a shelter? Is that a possibility in your neighborhood? Can you go to a family member or to a friend's home? There are many cans that you can do. I ended up living in my cousin's basement in the furnace room, not in the furnace room. That was the only can I could come up with. And there was a lot of can'ts in my way, but I kept kicking them away. The thing is, I listen to the women, and they're one excuse that I hear a lot is I have children. Well, they're watching this.
Yes. And they're learning that this is okay. So this is how it's supposed to be, right?
So you are doing a huge disservice. A huge. So instead of saying you can't leave because of your children, say you can leave because you want your children to be healthy.
And furthermore, you must leave because of your children, right? You must, because we can't, and I know in my situation, it took my friend who lived on an Air Force base and where there was 24-hour security, because even if I left the house to go to the grocery store, he would follow me. And so I just, one day I snuck in her car after work, and I just went to her home, and he couldn't get to me. And it was the safest place that I had ever felt. in my life. And I, you know, from there I worked on, and I went through it. I went through a horrible custody battle with my son, and he got the dirtiest attorney in our state.
And they will.
And he did, and he had the money and he had the resources to do that, and took my son away. And you know, we went through 3 years of fighting. I didn't see my son for 9 months, and after that could only have supervised visitation, because he had turned the whole thing around on me. I mean, talk about all the fears that women have happening, and their abusers are saying that, right? I'm going to do this to you. And
Yep.
And, you know, I'm living proof of walking through that yes, that happens. But you just keep taking one more step, and you just keep walking. And I'm here to say that my son now is 32, almost 33 years old, and we have a beautiful relationship. And his father and I have a beautiful relationship now. I've been able to let go and let God. He got the help that he needed through his second marriage and raising his second family. And I've grown a lot and been through a lot. And, you know, 2 years ago, we were able to sit down and have a family Christmas dinner together. My son's dad, his 2 children, my son, my daughter-in-law, my daughter, and my husband now. And we were all able to join together at the table and have a Christmas dinner. And I'm not saying that women, this is what you need to do, you know, 30 years after the fact, but I'm saying that this is what's possible for you if you just take that step and move out, right? And go.
And yes, he's going to hurt you. And yes, he's going to throw every piece of garbage he can throw at you to get in your way. Because, and here's the simple reason why, you stood up to him, and now he's angry. Because for all the time that you're there, you are just growing this beast, this spouse of yours.
Yes.
He's not your friend, and he's not kind to you, and he doesn't care if you're hurting or not. And the more you let him hurt you, the more he just keeps doing it. You're just growing. It's like a cancer. It just keeps growing.
Well, you're enabling him to do that then,
That's
right?
right.
And I get that there are some situations that are so scary, and we've had, you know, so many cases here in the United States, like I'm sure that you have in Canada, where women have gotten hurt or killed because they tried to leave. And so I don't ever want to diminish the fact that that happens, and that that's a real fear and should be a real fear. You need to take whatever measures are available and that you need to take to do this safely and appropriately. Like, we're not advocating at all, just walk out and everything will be fine. No, I think both you and I, right, are advocating that you look at every option. And that's the first place that you start is, like you said, you know, go to a family member or a friend or even a shelter, or like in your case where he was chasing you all the way to the police department. If you need to stop at the police department and say, this is what's happening to me and what do I need to do, and follow their suggestions. And, you know, unfortunately here in the States, they can't do anything until they've actually witnessed him doing something or that he has actually physically hurt you. You know, you can get restraining orders, but
they're not that great. No, I'm not diminishing people who are in real danger of their life. But what I will say is, if you've got a spouse that's threatening you with a gun or to kill you or something like that, start looking at the ways that you can get out of that. Because whether you're with him or not with him, he's going to find a way to do that. Yeah. He's psychotic, and you need to get away from that person. That's not the majority of domestic violence, though.
Right.
Fortunately,
it's what we see most in our news because it's what makes a story, right?
That's right.
But you're absolutely right. It's not the majority. So,
and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for those women that we are talking to, which are just those women that, you know, you don't necessarily feel that your life is in imminent danger, but, you know, boy, this thing could get out of hand if you don't do something about it.
Yes.
What do you say? Because, you know, I know one of the things that we've been talking about is that system just holds you. That system places you as a victim. and it doesn't allow you to get out. So we've talked about, kind of looking at different ways you can get out. And like you said, if you can save $5 a month even, then you have a plan. I mean, I remember it wasn't just that I woke up one day and decided to leave that day. No, it took me 6 months to actually get out, but every darn day I was working on that plan, and he had no idea that I was working on that plan. And
I did the same thing. And once you start working on the plan, this is what I tell my clients, you will gather steam, you will gather momentum, because you will see the possibilities starting to open up, but you must start the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, the courage, right? You said that you have to step out, you have to step into your courage and gather that courage to just take the first step. And if that first step is just telling someone, right?
Tell them that you want out.
Tell someone.
Yeah. And the other thing that I find, and maybe this was a blessing in my case, that I was out of town and away from my main city and my family, was I didn't really have the influence of family members telling me to stay, or you're just overreacting, he was just in a bad mood, or whatever those things. I didn't have that, but I know that a lot of people do. And one of the things I always say is that your dreams, your goals, your life are yours. And you simply say, I hear you, but I'm leaving anyway.
Good. So tell us a little bit, because I know we've kind of gone here for a little while, but this is just such great, just so great for the women to hear out there, and to know, one, they're not alone, right? That you've been there, I've been there. There are many women who've been there, and many women who are there now. But tell us about the Rebel Thriver method and how women can contact you about this. Because we're all about this, and we're all about giving powerful women like yourself the platform to shine. So this is your moment. Shine, girl.
Shine. Okay, my why for doing this is that the system almost killed me. It was much more brutal than he was in the end, in my opinion. And I find a lot of women get stuck in that. So I decided that we needed something that was different. We needed to touch base on a different level. So it's a balance between the hugging and the kicking. You get you motivated, give you a hug, get you motivated. The first part of it I call being raw, and that's your emotions. They need to come out. They need to come out about you, not about him, about you, what you feel. I don't care. There's a lot of talk right now going on about narcissism and all of this stuff. It doesn't matter if he's a narcissist or a sociopath or just a jerk. The point of the matter is, you've been hurt and you need to express that. And I always tell my clients, let it out in any way you can. Shout it out, kick it out. I don't cry it out. But after you're done, take a peace break, a peaceful moment, a cup of tea, and sit down and reflect on what you were feeling and what was happening when you were going through that. And what about yourself you're going to change? Because a lot of times it comes down to self-confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a part of you that doesn't love you.
Yeah.
So you're looking for love outside.
And I'm sure for you, it was probably similar to me when I stopped loving myself, was when I started allowing that to happen. Because like you, before that, I never even imagined that this could ever happen. Like I never been, my parents were as solid as the rock that they were born from. My grandparents the same way. I had never been around abuse. I'd heard stories of it, but all my life I thought, that's not going to be me. Are you kidding? I'm the fighter. Come on, let's go. I'd never let that happen to me. And when I allowed it to happen to me, my self-esteem, for lack of a better word, went in the toilet. I mean, it was just, then I was like, how can you be this person that you let someone do this? And it just kept tearing at my self-esteem. And I just didn't love myself at all because I had allowed him to do that.
Yes. And you got to get all those emotions out so you can start rebuilding that. Because if you don't, you won't rebuild it. You'll get stuck there.
Right.
The other part of it, a big part of it, is gratitude. And a lot of my clients struggle with the gratitude portion until they get started. Because there is something every day, always something to be grateful for. And even though you're going through this great challenge, you got to take the time to recognize what's good in your life,
Yeah.
because then you start to focus on that. The other part of the Rebel method is healing that inner wound. How did you get there? What does love mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Because a lot of times we throw around these emotional words. I love him. And I always say to them, what exactly do you love about him? Exactly, precisely.
Yeah.
Rarely can they name the thing that they love. It's just an esoteric feeling. They love something they thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's about that, and it's about values, and it's about embracing your authentic self. You are unique. You are somebody who just stands out on your own. People look at me and they say, where I had a lady just not too long ago say to me, I could never let my hair go like that. Why not?
Right.
Why not? What stops you? And I thought that was a great moment. So that's what it's all about. It's a combination of support, but it's a real approach. It's a lot of real hard questions. What exactly do you love about him? What exactly do you want in your life? How will it feel when you get there?
Yeah.
So they have a feeling when they accomplish something. We celebrate every step that they take.
That's great. So you're actually working with them versus
On them.
on him and the past and what happened and keeping them in that victim story. I absolutely love that. So tell me how this program works. Is it a program? Is it a coaching program? What is it? How do women get into it? How do they contact you?
It's a coaching
Give me
program.
the scoop, girlfriend. Give me the scoop.
It's a coaching program. It's 8 weeks long to begin with.
Okay.
And yeah, it's great. They can reach me on my website, which is www.susanball.ca. And all the details about the Rebel Thriver program are there.
Okay.
I also have a program called Rebel Self-Love, which is all about that self-love aspect, finding out what you value, what brings you joy. There's a lot of women who don't even know what makes them happy anymore. So we get down to that, what does make you happy? Because once you embrace that, then it's much easier to find somebody to walk the path with you.
Great.
Because you're both doing the same thing.
Right. I would love to extend, and I know Heather, our Woman Up Global co-founder and my bestie, would just love for me to offer anyone here that is watching, listening, whatever you're doing, when you go to susanball.ca and you check out the Rebel Self-Love program, we're going to give Susan a way to give you a couple of things from us, so that she knows that we're the ones who sent you. And one of the things that we're going to give to you is our Know Your Truth Journal, which is a fully illustrated workbook that Heather Del Rosario, our co-founder, has actually created herself in all of her phenomenal artistry. And it has some really deep self-awareness type questions that they can just really start getting in tune with how they're feeling. What makes them feel courage? What makes them feel confident? Things like that, some specific questions. And then I also have an opportunity to give away the color code assessment. I'm licensed and certified with the color code training system. And the color code is based on the 4 colors of personality: red, blue, white, and yellow. And you know, I've taken a lot of personality assessments and a lot of personality profiles before in my life. And a lot of them I say, yeah, that's kind of me. Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, that's me. But, you know, no, that part, that's not me at all. And it's because a lot of personality assessments, their questions are relative to the behaviors that you've learned. And your learned self is what we call it. The color code assessment is very different in that the questions are all based in who you were born as. So it's your innate self. And you can't I tried, with every assessment, I always try to do one that I'm answering honestly and one that I'm answering as my learned self and how they might want me to answer it or the person I want to be. And it's come out very different. And I tried to do that with the color code, and you can't just because of the type of questions that are. And the reason why I want to give that away is because I think when you're going through a system like yours and a program like yours, the more self-awareness that you have of who you innately are, because you've been in this situation that has made you someone else, that you've allowed to make you someone else. And you can get back in touch with that innate self, then it makes your work with the Rebel Thriver method much more impactful, I would think.
I love this.
And are you okay with that? Are you okay with us giving?
I am so okay with that.
From this? Okay, great. So we'll have a way for you to do that. We'll set it up with Susan so that when you talk to her about her Rebel Thriver method and you're actually in that program, that we'll be giving you these two things, and both of them, together have about a $500 value. So we want to be able to give that away to anyone who's going to come to you for the Rebel Thriver method, because I just think the more that we've talked and the more that I hear about your program, them knowing themselves first is just imminent.
That is just so amazing. Like I'm just so thrilled. Thank you so much.
You're very
and my
welcome.
clients, thank you too. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So again, I just want to recap. It's Susan Ball, SUSAN, B as in boy, ALL.ca, which is the extension for Canada. And right there, they'll be able to find out about the Rebel Thriver method and what the program's about and how to get started. And then we'll be giving away the Know Your Truth workbook and the color code assessment for free for anybody who comes to you through us.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Twyla.
Oh.
This has been a real pleasure. A really, really good interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for being here. And is there any last thought or bit of wisdom that you want to share with our women before we close out today?
Yes, I just want to say this one thing. When you walk out the front door, you have now taken your first victory lap. Always remember that. When you shut the door, you're on a victory lap, and keep going, because the victory laps get wider and bigger, and before you know it, you're living a blissful life, and it's yours.
Thank you. What a great message, and thank you so much for being here, and we will talk with you soon. Thanks so much, Susan.
You're welcome, Twyla. Bye now.